I mean, if you're Jesse Marsch, though, let's look at the two games as a whole. We'll look at things that he likes and things that perhaps he didn't like and is concerned about. Let's start with the positive. What did Jesse Marsch like from these two games?
I think if you're Jesse Marsch, you're looking at just how the players competed in both matches, right? And like I said before, I thought the first one was the football was a lot more free-flowing. Everything that he was working on, that press, getting forward as quick as possible. Everything that the team's about was shown on Saturday. And, I think they surprised the Ukraine, just how quick this team was, how fast they pressed, how they didn't let them breathe throughout the match. And to score 4 goals against Ukraine is quite remarkable. It really is. And for the players to come off the pitch and be disappointed that they conceded 2 goals in the end just goes to show you how much they take pride in their work. And the second match, they showed that they could roll up their sleeves and compete with the physicality of a team from Africa. Look, if that's a World Cup, you play against a European team, you get 3 points. Then you play against an African team, you battle with them, go toe-to-toe with them, and you walk away with a point, you're into the next round. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think there's a lot of positives, and he'll be looking at players that, that are kind of on the cusp. He's got to look at a roster of 26 that he wants. And I think he'll come away thinking, Nathan Saliba was very, very good. Bassong was very good. Dufajerol was very good as well. Sigor, I thought, was terrific. Mm-hmm. Absolutely terrific. Promise David, Jesse obviously wants him to play a certain way. And I think you got to take his physical attributes into play here and think, can this guy press? Can he start a press being 6'5" and an absolute monster of a man? But he'll bring you something different, and I thought in the first match he did well because he fought the 2 center backs. He was a handful for them, which created space for Jonathan David to roam around and find these little pockets that he wanted to play in. So he brings you something different, a different attacking dynamic. Jebison, he struggled a little bit yesterday at times, lost the ball, had trouble holding it and bringing the rest of the team into play. But I think if it was a different game, maybe against the Ukraine, if he had longer, it would have been a different performance from Jebison. So I think when you look at it, he'd probably be thinking, you know what, we do have some depth here. We do have some players that can compete. And everybody's buying into his identity, his philosophy, style of play, and the way that he wants to. So for me, overall, I think if he looks at these 2 games, I think he'll be happy with what he has right now.
JMo, people are kind of writing off Kyle Larin right now, and we're discussing who's going to replace him in the big games, Promise or Dan Jebison. That's probably writing off Kyle a little bit too early. Gold Cup's kicking off on Tuesday. They want to win this thing. Who is beside John David in Jesse Marsch's preferred 11 at this point?
Oh, I think, obviously Tajon Buchanan, I thought he was sort of outstanding in that Ukraine game. Probably like his best game in quite a while for Canada. So, it was encouraging to see because obviously, he's had some, rough going with just sort of injuries and lack of form for the national team over the last little bit. So I thought that was, he did himself a lot of good favors with his performance. I think there's, obviously we didn't see Alistair Johnston at this tournament. He's going to come in, and one to suspect that he's going to draft back in. I thought Derek Cornelius was strong over the 2 games. I mean, he was the only one to play the full sort of 90 minutes. There's with the sort of, broadening of the player pool, I think there's going to be sort of increased competition for playing time and for starting roles. And so I don't necessarily think that there's as many sort of lockdown spots as people tend to think there are. I think there's going to be a lot of sort of questions that still have to be answered with regards to that. It's not to say that there aren't locked in starters. Of course there are. One, I would have to think that Alphonso Davies, Johnston, Tajon, Jonathan David, obviously these are guys who are locked in for the World Cup. But I think there are some spots still to be won here, and it'll be interesting to see how sort of the Gold Cup plays into that sort of decision-making process for Jesse Marsch.
Yeah, I think we got to keep in mind too. He's definitely, and that's why he's played these players quite a bit and give them good minutes, because when you do get to the World Cup, you can't go with your starting 11 every single game. Right. So you have to be able to bring in players that can compete, where the standard of play doesn't alter. And I think he can rely on a few players that maybe before he was thinking, I'm not too sure. But if he's looking at certain individuals and thinking, okay, these guys can do a job for me, they're only going to get better over the next year. That's more experience in football at the club level that they're going to get. They're going to get more experience at a Gold Cup going into the World Cup. So I think overall it was good. And as to go on to what Sharms was saying about Kyle Larin, look, let's be honest. If you're going to start this Gold Cup, Kyle Larin started with Jonathan David up top. Has to.
Yeah, no, I agree. Neither Promise or Jefferson took his spot.
No.
It's too early for that.
I don't think they and they won't, you know. And like I said before, they'll go into this tournament, they'll get minutes. Promise David and Jefferson. Then they'll go back to the club. Then they're going to have another year of experience. Then come March, they're going to have some more friendlies. So their preparation is just building now, getting there. But do they have the experience right now that Larin's got? No chance. They're nowhere near where Larin is. So for me, Kyle Larin and Jonathan David are the two that's going to start up top. I mean, over 60 goals collectively, the experience that they have, they played in the World Cup, they played in Gold Cup, they played in qualifying. They've got way too much experience.
Larin with the armband as well. But Craig, that being said, there's this Gold Cup. It's a big tournament. It's not about experimentation, I don't think. It'd be nice to be up by 2 or 3 goals in a match and you can play around a little bit perhaps. But for Jesse Marsch, it's about best 11 every game. Let's try and win this thing, isn't it?
Yes and no. I think there's got to be some experimenting going on a little bit because it's so valuable and you're a year away from the big prize really, and that's playing in the World Cup. So there is a bit of that. There's an element of that going on, but they want to win it. There's never going to be a better chance for Canada to win the Gold Cup. Americans are absolute shambles. Mexico is the worst I've ever seen, certainly in my lifetime. So who else is going to be there that's going to challenge our squad? I don't see it. So they've got to basically make that step, and we're raise the bar, and we have
Panama. Panama, you got to keep an eye on.
Right. Yeah, but let's not dismiss Mexico, though.
Let's be real. Panama doesn't they're a decent team, a group of players, a decent team, but Canada's on paper is way better.
Oh, yeah.
Way better.
Right, but let's not dismiss Mexico. They won the Nations League. They took care of Canada pretty handily. They got the Jimenez boys. They're a strong squad, JMo, in this Gold Cup as well. I'm with you. I would never question Craig as saying the worst he's seen this last night. He played against them numerous times, and that's right. They're certainly not at their peak, but they're still favorites for a reason in the Gold Cup. JMo?
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I mean, I take Craig's point about, Canada has to sort of, I think I would like to see them lean into the fact that, they should be considered one of the favorites at this tournament. When you look at sort of just on paper, I would argue it's the best team in CONCACAF right now. When you have players the caliber of, Jonathan David and Kyle Larin and Tajon Buchanan, Alistair Johnson. These are guys who are playing top-level football at top-level European clubs, winning sort of trophies in the process. That bodes well. And so I don't think we should shy away from the fact and hold Canada up to sort of a higher standard of expectation in terms of, let's win this because, let's be honest, since, Qatar, I think in terms of results anyway, it's been somewhat underperforming. I mean, there's been, losses in Nations League. And so this presents Canada with a real chance to sort of remind everyone, I think, again, in the region that, hey, we're the team to beat in CONCACAF. We're the best team in this region. Let's prove it by winning the Gold Cup. And so, again, no disrespect to Mexico. I think still a quality side, but I don't think, looking at it objectively, I don't think how anyone can look past sort of Canada as being sort of the favorite going into this competition. And that's okay. I mean, again,
the bookies aren't though. The bookies have the States and Mexico still.
Sorry?
Right. The bookies still have the States and Mexico. Just because the money's coming from there, right? Far more than Canada, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know too much about betting and how that sort of how they figure that out, but
nor do we.
with all due respect to the Boogies, I just think that's a bit ridiculous, especially when you consider the state of the U.S. team at the moment.
Right now,
the hardest part for us, Canada, is playing in. You get up against Mexico in the semis or final of the Gold Cup, is going to be the crowd. Right. They're going to have an absolutely brilliant turnout, and we bring nothing to the fucking table. So there's no support there for that. So home field advantage in football is as big as any sport, and they've got that advantage with the support that they get.
Canada's at plus 650, Craig, to win this thing. I'm putting some money on that.
For sure.
Mexico's at plus 1.
That's worth a buck.
Oh my God.
I might put a toonie down on that,
There you go. When do you get back on a toonie?
$1.65. That's what you're gonna get back.
I'll figure that out when I figure. Let me load up the.
With Canada Soccer, are they sponsored? Do they have a sponsor with an airline? I'm just always thinking, like, how do you make it easier for fans to get to games? Because it is expensive in American dollar as well. You'd think maybe if they have a partnership with WestJet or Air Canada, they can sort out some flights or discounts for fans to get to stadiums, maybe cheaper ticket prices for the fans, just to get the support there.
Maybe they need a sponsor from Uber, because in Vancouver they're sort of struggling with selling tickets. So maybe they put one right in their backyard, and we still can't get a crowd. Like, we'll see, but you know what I'm talking about. Flights, fuck, they can just drive downtown Vancouver. So
true. Yeah. We got crowds for the World Cup qualifying. It just shows that people, the term World Cup, TM, goes a long way, far more than the Canadian Shield, which is a shame. It just shows that the real fans were there last night. Yes, but it's those other fans, perhaps those outside of peripheral fans, who haven't quite, after all these years now. Qualifying was when was the World Cup? 2022.
Yep.
So
and look, let's be honest. Canadians have access to so many options, and part of the conversation about those options are we like big events, and we watched. I mean, the Olympics. There's we still support that no matter where it is, whether it's on television, whether it's digital, across the board. And so, we are one of those countries who like big events, and we don't support local all the time. And if you understand that, then you can start at least diagnosing the problem. Like Jimmy said, creating opportunities for travel, but you have to diagnose the problem. And I don't think CSA, MLSC for national soccer has diagnosed it completely yet. They're trying. And I think they're bringing in the new administration. They're moving in the right direction. But the problem is, we're a big market city. The Canadian Shield, as much as I'd loved it, it's as you guys say, it's the He Believes Cup. And we have a way to go, like Sharm said. But it starts with the admitting you have an issue, right? So
let's see how the Gold Cup does.
But when you think about Saturday, they said they had 22,000 there. Wow. That's what they said that they sold when I was speaking to a few people before the game. For me, that's not a bad crowd, is it? 22,000 on a Saturday for a friendly?
No.
How many?
And obviously, look, midweek to 8:30 at night on a Tuesday, school night. That's difficult. And you guys know exactly what it's like trying to get to BMO Field during a week. Mm-hmm. It's a nightmare.
Right. Let's talk about wouldn't it be nice if one of these events was held in Canada, right? I mean, why is it the United States that's always hosting the CONCACAF Gold Cup? And I appreciate that there's going to be one game in Vancouver, and there's been sort of odd games at previous Gold Cups that have been staged in Canada. But, it'd be nice to see CONCACAF spreading the love a little bit. And, if not giving Canada the entire tournament, then maybe giving it proper co-hosting responsibilities with the United States, giving it half of the games or something like that. I think that would go a long way in terms of getting more fans out to these events and really sort of building, upon the momentum that the men's team has experienced since Qatar.
We have. I mean, listen, stadiums are a huge issue, but we have enough to at least
sure we do.
host a number of games. We've shown that at the World Cup, which is 2 stadiums. You throw some in Montreal as well.
Yeah.
Edmonton, of course you can.
Edmonton.
Throw some more in Mexico. Like, spread it around.
Yeah.
Like, the states get everything. Whatever they want, they get. That's the reason. Because they're so welcoming and hospitable to other countries.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, if you're going to go to the World Cup, I don't know why you'd want to go to the States, especially at the moment. I mean, I know it's a year away, but it's a big problem for FIFA. Big problem.
How many of them? I mean,
so if people are thinking about coming to the World Cup, Canada's a great option for you, or Mexico.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Some of those countries, Iran will be at the World Cup. Will their fans be allowed? Don't know. It's a tricky one.
Who knows?
Would you want to be a fan? Would you want to be a fan and get that border with the unknown around the customs, right? You don't know what's going to happen at that border patrol. That's the issue. It could be very inviting. It could be so hospitable, or it could be, oh, you don't have the right papers and you're heading back to Iran today.
Or you're going to El Salvador.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, who would want any part of that, really?
Well, listen, it's a year away tomorrow, right? The World Cup, the kickoff.
Wow.
It's only a year, but that's a long time right now in geopolitical situations.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Absolutely.
Who the hell knows what's going to happen by this time next year? We might all just be a smoking plume.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought he might invade Canada, Greenland, wherever, and he invaded California first, so that was a bit of a surprise.
Stayed within his borders. Thank you.
Well, it's practice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we probably shouldn't go down that avenue just yet. Just soccer, you losers.
Yeah.
All right. So I mentioned the positives, and we saw the positives. I'm not going to mention Luc de Fougerol's penalty, because it wasn't the worst penalty in that shootout, thankfully. But he was obviously a big positive, I think. Negative. What's Jesse Marsch concerned about, Jimmy, having seen these 2 games?
I think one negative would be that game against the Ivory Coast. Do we have enough in our locker to get a grip and get a hold of a match like that? I think both teams were matching each other's work rate. They canceled each other out a lot of time. Again, a lot of fouls. But I think in situations like that, you need individuals on the park that are going to get control of a match so that you can get on the front foot and don't end up just going toe-to-toe for 90 minutes. Sometimes you need somebody on the pitch that's brave enough to get on the ball and brave enough to make something happen. One incident for me, which I loved, where we were trying to play through them. We couldn't. They were closing down real quick. There was one spell, and I actually showed a highlight at halftime where Coney actually gets it and drives forward with the ball, breaks through everybody, leaves 6 players behind, and it's just that final ball that let us down. But it's moments like that where you want certain individuals to be creative and make something happen. Take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and drive into spaces, drive into areas, and we didn't do that in that situation last night in that match, apart from that couple of spells with Kone.
Isn't that why John David plays so deep? Because we haven't got that guy who can put his foot on the ball, number 10, essentially. That guy isn't there right now. So they play John David a lot deeper, when really he should probably be up top, a little bit higher up the pitch. Is that fair to say?
I think that's a bit of a fair point. I think also, one of the sort of, when you're asking about what are some of the things that Jesse might be concerned about, I think against Ivory Coast especially, I just really like the way that Ibrahim Sangare and Frank Kessie really kind of just sort of controlled the game. That they're a really sort of, physical pair of players. And I don't know that Canada necessarily has players in that mold who can offer, a little bit of physicality in central midfield. I think they have some guys who can offer that in other parts of the pitch, especially up front. When you look at someone like Kyle Lairn or, Jebison or Promise David, these are big forwards who can kind of mix it up with defenders. But I'm not suggesting that Canada's soft in midfield either, but there does seem to be a lack of a physical edge a little bit in the center of the park. So that's perhaps somewhere an area of concern for Jesse as well.
I think one of the problems or one of the challenges is playing against sides like Cote d'Ivoire, who sat back a little bit. Ukraine, I don't think we're going to see teams play up high like that, leaving space in behind, and got absolutely crushed. So can we break teams down that bunker in and try to play for a draw? Can we unlock those teams? Because we're not really used to that. It's usually the other way around. You know, we're bunkering in, but with this team, it's been different. But I think that teams are going to make it very, very difficult. We're going to have to be able to play in a phone booth at times.
And Craig, sorry, taking what Jimmy said about the creativity in midfield, is that part of how you break a team down? Because it seems to me that if that's what Jimmy's diagnosing as a challenge, that actually leads to everything you're saying right now. It's playing the different teams that do bunker in and offer a different challenge.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And that midfield is absolutely critical for that too. You see it with all the best teams in the world, club and country. The best ones can play in those tight areas. Look at, I mean, a guy like Messi's a great, I mean, we know what Messi's all about, but I mean, for him he can find space. You know, he's clever enough. He can come deep in those positions too and pick up the ball and be effective. So we've got to learn how to do that. And I think we can, but there'll be different challenges for us.
I also, Stax, you know, to kind of go on that, when you look at the style of play that we play right now, where it's that go, balls to the wall, pressing, you know, what's the alternative when we're playing, you know, in a Gold Cup in the middle of summer? It's going to be absolutely roasting over 100 degrees at field level, and you can't press like that for 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm. You know, That's right. That's right. I mean, we didn't see Canada really in these two games press like we have seen them. Yeah. So whether that was on purpose for reasons like that, because you have to take that into account. Even when they're in Qatar, they were lucky they had air-conditioned stadiums. They're able to play. The conditions were perfect, but there'll be times, like you say, it could be 100 degrees on the pitch. So they're going to have to come up with different styles, and they seem to do that. They seem to be very adaptable, and I don't worry about that too much. But certainly they have to take that into account.
Well, starting next week, you got Honduras, El Salvador, Curacao. We're going to see some bunking in, right? So we're going to see what the solution to that is, and if it's in this current squad right now. By the way, Craig, that the plus 650, right? So $10 wins you $65. I might put a tenner down on that.
No,
which I don't think I've ever done before. Maybe once, twice.
That's a big one for you, man.